Hey everyone, hey wellness crew, and welcome to today's live stream. This was something that is just kind of weighed on my heart because it is something that I am currently experiencing, and it's also something that a lot of people that I am engaging with have also been experiencing as well, and that they're really talking to me about. And I was like, I wonder why this is going on with a lot of different people. So I don't know if it's like relationship season or if it's like, quote unquote mating season right now. But a lot of people have been experiencing this like thing where people are kind of trying to slide back into the DMs, are trying to kind of come back into lives after they've been, kind of out of people's lives for a while. And things can get a little sticky, things can get a little tricky, things can get a little icky. So, whenever we're, in a relationship that is a little bit more complicated, for example, something like a long distance relationship, a lot of people will sometimes not be able to share in that joy with you, right? Especially if it's a new thing, especially if it's something that you're just beginning to enter and just starting out. Uh, Sometimes it's not something that you think is that you didn't plan on having, or something that you didn't plan on experiencing, or something that you didn't plan on happening to you in any capacity, and it just happens. And it's something that you want to enjoy, it's something that you want to talk about. And unless you have friends that are kind of already in the know and kind of already, when y'all have kind of the same set of friends, that makes it a lot easier. But when you don't have that, sometimes people are like, you are crazy. How and why are you in a long distance relationship when you have access to people that are closer to you, and you have access to people that you can, physically be with on a more regular basis? I think long distance relationships are something that are definitely not meant for everybody. You have to definitely have a very good sense of trust. And that trust definitely begins with having trust in yourself. If you don't trust yourself, you cannot trust another person. So having that, you know, foundation of being able to trust yourself, learning how to trust yourself, as I always say, knowing how to love yourself first. That's the only way that you're going to be able. I was just checking that my mic was on. Knowing how to love yourself first, that's the biggest step in any relationship, no matter if it's long distance, no matter if it's, right here where you are, no matter what, loving yourself first. But there's a lot of things that kind of come along with being in long distance relationships, right? There's the obviously the happiness, the joy, the getting to talk to somebody, and also being able to have your own personal space, being able to enjoy having your own time to yourself, and not being, like super tied down in the sense of you guys can create your own schedule and have your own freedom and still have your own independence, and being able to maintain that a little bit more and have a little bit more freedom. Definitely having a conversation on the kind of rules and the kind of boundaries that you guys want to have in your relationship. Everyone is different. I have friends that have a whole bunch that are so different and so unique, and they all have very different types of feelings on how they would want to have their relationships and on how they do their relationships, which is just like most people. I'm sure a lot of you have with your friends and with your acquaintances and in your families, right? Everyone's relationship dynamics are so incredibly different. So sometimes sharing, or wanting to share your relationship, and especially when it's new and all of that, yes, you may want to, but I will sometimes encourage people to maybe hold back a little bit and kind of wait a little bit, give it a little bit of time. Or if it's something that you're excited about and you have a group of people, or you have, mutual friends that already know you guys and are kind of like, oh, okay, then that's something where, yes, you can, definitely be more into sharing. But if you're someone that's a little bit more sensitive, if you're somebody that's a little bit more affected by people's feedback and affected by people's reactions to things, then maybe don't share with people around you. Maybe don't share with people that don't have an open mind. Maybe don't share with people that you might take their feedback a little bit more harshly, right? Um, at the end of the day, to be quite honest with you, it is not on the other person that's giving you the feedback. It's really not on them, it's on you. It's on how you are receiving it, it's on your perception. So just remember that. You can always change your perception, you can always change the way that you are perceiving how somebody else is responding to you. So don't forget that. It's incredibly important to understand that. Sometimes people aren't really attacking you, and sometimes people aren't really trying to be negative. Sometimes it's just the way that they're communicating. And in relationships, it is so important to really learn how your partner communicates and for your partner to learn how you communicate, because that's a really big component of relationships is communication. And when it's long distance, it's one of those things where it's not always easy because you're not face to face. You're not face to face every day. And it's not always easy to be able to see and to learn their mannerisms or their the way that they communicate with body language or the way that they communicate with um, well, mainly with body language, I guess. That's kind of like a really big one. um, not being able to see the everyday and be around the everyday, so not really knowing. And again, that's, thank you so much for the like, I appreciate that. And again, that's where that trust component comes in, because a lot of people will go into this like downward spiral. And this is honestly, regardless of if you're in a long distance relationship or not, when you're apart from someone, there's a lot of people that have this like jealous tendency. Me personally, I love to joke around, make jokes, and it's really funny because um, the person that I'm, you know, with, they think it's hilarious and they think it's funny when I'm like, oh, I'm so jealous of like Chat GPT or something. Like I'll make, really silly, stupid jokes. And that's just how we communicate. That's our language. Our language is humor. Our language is sarcasm. Our language is, being silly and stuff like that, because it just is something that unites us. And everyone can find their own thing, right? Something that unites them, their own language, their own way of communicating to bring each other together. But sometimes you can't tell if you're communicating through text, for example. Again, whether it's a long distance relationship or not, you don't really know the inflection of the person's voice. You don't know what they're meaning. Sometimes maybe there won't be a comma or there won't be a period or there won't be punctuation. And they're just, sending you a quick text and you're like, oh, how do I take this? You definitely want to already, before you get into a relationship, have that confidence, have that self love, have that self assurance that you know who you are, that you know exactly what you're about before you get into anything else. Before you get into something where you feel like, oh, I need someone, or if that's where you're at, maybe don't get into a relationship. Or if you're in a relationship and you're in that, oh, I need this person, that's codependence. And that's not something that I want for you. Maybe you will just need to do some work on yourself. Maybe the both of you will need to do work on yourselves. And that can be together or that can be apart. But you definitely want to just think about, in these certain, kind of stickier situations, you want to do what's best for you, but you also do want to do what's best for the relationship, especially if it's something that's working out good for you, especially if it's something that's good for you. If this is something that is a positive thing for the both of you, then it's something that's definitely worth investing your time and your energy in. Because those are our two most important resources outside of money. Those are the things that we can not really get back, with the exception of energy. We can always, refuel that, but we can't get back our time. So just don't forget, like when you're investing your time into somebody, you're not going to get that back. So make sure that this person is definitely worthy of you. Make sure that this person is definitely somebody that is worthy of all the time that you're going to be putting into this. And when it comes to long distance relationships, sometimes this can be a big commitment and it doesn't really seem like it could be because it's like, well, what about, when someone is, close to you and things like that? Well, with long distance relationships, even though you guys may not be together all the time physically, especially if the distance is really far, like another country. It, sorry, it's like I'm not playing it close to close to the vest right now. Um, it's like one of those things where you have to really be in the mentality of, okay, well, this is something that is very new, something that is very, not something I've me personally, it's not something I've ever done before, not something I ever thought I would really do. Um, but something new and something that has been super exciting and is also something that hasn't been super crazy. The time difference is only an hour, so that's been super helpful. Um, but it's also been something that, yeah, when you really want to get to know someone, starting out as friends for us was super helpful, super awesome. And getting to, joke around and really get to know each other's sense of humor because that is me, as a lot of people know that have been watching me for a while. I thrive on humor. I love, people that can make me laugh. I love just being humorous, being joyous, being, in a lighter, place, not being super heavy all the time. But I also love being able to be in a place where it feels like you can be helpful, right? Where you can be an addition, not a subtraction from someone's life, where it feels like you are always adding and not taking away, where you're always in a place to be able to give, but also being able to be in a place where if you do need to talk to that person, if you do need to sometimes rely on that person, that they do have your back, that they do, that they are able to handle certain things and certain days when maybe you're having a more difficult situation happening, or maybe you're having a more taxing, thing, or maybe it's just a little bit more complicated that day, and they're able to handle it with grace, and they're patient, and they're kind, and they're not trying to shut you up, right? That's something that in toxic relationships, I personally have experienced in the past, where it was like, yeah, I just kind of want to look at you, have you be pretty, and I don't want to hear you talk. And it was like, oh, okay, I see that dynamic now. Not a fan of that. And there's a lot of women that have that experience. And there's also some men that have that experience too. Like, I have some guy friends that have told me, they're like, it really kind of sucks because it just felt like she was into me because she wanted to look at me and have a physical relationship, but she really wasn't interested in anything that I had to say. And I'm not a socially awkward person, Jenna. Like, I'm not a super, um, you know, I don't have any problems speaking, and I have a good personality and all that, but sometimes people are so focused on the physical and they're really shallow. They have a really shallow point and they don't really want to go deeper. And those are the kind of people where if you have that already a feeling about them, if you have that already notion about them, if you're having any kind of feelings, like any kind of feelings in your gut or your chest, which I, say is, the heart. But if you're having any kind of like feelings of ickiness or having any feelings of like, I don't know about this, I'm really unsure about this, and not like the excited, like, oh, like I'm not sure, but more like the, I don't know, this kind of feels like a red flag. That is your intuition, and that is something that maybe you should trust. Now, sometimes it's hard to discern between fear of like, oh, this is new and exciting, and fear of like, no, this is probably a bad path. This is probably a bad idea. So, really getting to know yourself and learn as much as you can about yourself and learn what a healthy relationship is just in general is definitely the best bet for you, especially if you're new to relationships in general or if you've experienced trauma in past relationships. And especially if right now, and it seems to be the season for people trying to slide back into your DMs or slide back into your texts or slide back into your life. I've actually had this conversation with a couple of people and they're like, I don't know what's going on. It's like, I've moved on. I'm doing good. I'm happy, whether they're single or in a relationship. And it's like, right now, it's just that season. And I don't know if it's something about August. I don't know if it's something about, hey, the kids are back in school and maybe some people have more free time that have kids. And so they're like, okay, let me slide back in. I don't know. I really don't know why it's happening like right now. But it seems to be a thing. And so, there's a way to gracefully definitely handle that situation. You can respond if you would like and maintain your boundaries and just be like, hey, thanks for reaching out. This is not something that I'm interested in any longer. Have a wonderful rest of your day. Or you don't even have to be that nice. And in fact, what the person I'm with was saying is, I don't even respond because I think that's an answer in and of itself. And at first, when I first heard that from him, I was like, well, that's kind of like ghosting, a little bit. But then I thought about it, and I was like, no, that's just a boundary. That's simply stating, hey, like this is the answer. The answer is I haven't heard from you. And to be quite honest, I haven't missed you. And you're not having to say this at all, but like this is kind of what it's saying. It's saying like I haven't missed you. I haven't heard from you. I don't need you in my life, I mean, it's saying a lot of things simply just by being silent. So sometimes we really don't have to say anything at all. We can just not respond. We can just be silent. And then for me, it happened on like I kind of got inundated with it a little bit. And I was like, okay, well, I went ahead and just took a page out of that book. And for one of them, I was like, I'm just not going to respond. And that has worked out sort of, except it led to the silence did not allow that person to infer that I was saying, no, thank you. That silence had that person infer, like, oh no, let me keep on trying. So for some people, it's going to be like, you do have to set a hardcore boundary. You do need to say something. But for other people, sometimes it's just having a much shorter, much more brisk, much more straight to the point, right? Just like the first thing I said. Being just more straight up and being like, hey, I'm in a different place, but thanks for reaching out. Or something simple, right? It just depends on the situation, it depends on the person. So if you're wanting to get out of that, or if it's bringing up stuff for you that's negative, then maybe just don't respond. Or, there's always blocking. It's perfectly okay for you to have your boundaries. It's perfectly okay to get out of those situations. When people are trying to, get back in, maybe the situation was toxic, or maybe the situation just was something that was uncomfortable. If it's wasting your time, if it's wasting your energy, don't allow it to happen. Don't get sucked back in. If it didn't work then, it probably isn't going to work now. There are very rare exceptions, and that is when there's like a timing type of thing. If there's a timing issue, maybe situationally, if the timing just wasn't right, okay, I can maybe understand that, but that's very few and far between. Most of the time, it's like, yeah, if it really didn't work out the first time, it's probably not going to work out the second time. If it didn't seem like they were worth your time and energy the first time, then why are you going to go back to that this time? And if they're trying to slide in again, who knows who else they're trying to slide into as well, right? You don't really know. And that's not coming from a place of having trust issues. It's just, if it didn't work out the first time, there's definitely a reason. So having honest communication with people, right? That's definitely something that's important. It's definitely something that's important with a partner. It's definitely something that you want to maintain and have as much as you can. In fact, all the time. But, some people, they feel like, okay, well, some of my boundaries are maintaining my independence, and some of my boundaries are having my own free time and not feeling like I have to spill everything. I'm not saying you have to spill everything, but I'm saying that you do have to have respect for your partner, and you do need to be honest about things, and you should feel comfortable to be able to be honest about certain things. If you're afraid to say things to your partner, if you feel like you can't share certain things with your partner that are normal to share, that are whatever normal is for you, obviously. But if you feel like you can't do that, then definitely you might want to reevaluate the situation. You definitely might want to reevaluate the relationship. You definitely might want to take a step back and really think about, is this the right situation for me? Is this really, where I want to be, who I want to be with, what I want to be doing? You really want to think about the dynamics. What are the dynamics in my relationship? And for everybody, they're totally different, right? I have talked about in the past masculine and feminine energy, and everyone has both. Everybody, has the masculine energy, which typically tends to reside more in our head, and the feminine energy, which more typically tends to reside in our bodies. So we all have it, and we all play different roles. We all have our different roles. We all have our different things that we are in charge of in our relationships. We all have our different things that we do. And each relationship obviously is incredibly different. And that is something where it's difficult for me to speak in generalities, because everyone is so different. So I I try to kind of cover as much as I possibly can. Um, but understanding that everyone is different and there's not just like one set role for each person. Everyone will kind of have different roles in their relationships, but being able to communicate that with your partner and being able to say, okay, this is like what I do, and this is what I would like for you to do. And how do you feel about that? And then just kind of having that dialogue and being able to have the dialogue. Are you comfortable having that dialogue? If you're not comfortable having that dialogue, then you probably shouldn't be in that relationship. If you just feel scared or nervous, like, like the butterflies in your stomach or the normal, oh, this is, I'm still in the new phase, or I'm still kind of, nervous, that's one thing, that's fine. But if you're in like, a few months in or something, and you're still trying to figure this out, and you're still trying to understand what your role is or what you want your role to be, and you're still not getting what you're still not understanding, or there's still some type of breakdown in communication, or you're still not able to, if you even have a breakdown in communication, which most relationships do have sometimes, right? Of course there's going to be times when you're going to not agree on everything. I mean, that would be super boring if we always agreed on everything all the time. Like, what would be the point? You definitely want to have someone that can challenge you, because when someone challenges you, they're helping you grow. They're helping you see things from a completely different perspective sometimes. And that is something that is so wonderful for you to grow as a person. And also, it's great to see things from different sides. It's great to be able to, learn new things and appreciate things about somebody else that maybe you never thought to appreciate before. That's definitely been something that I've been seeing. I'm like, wow, there's things that I never thought that I would have interests in. And because he has interests in these things, I now have these interests in these things. And I really find these things super, like incredible, and things that I want to spend my time on and things that I want to learn more about. Whereas I didn't really feel that way before. And, sometimes people can just do that to you. And when you have that feeling, when you have that experience, when you have that wanting to learn more about something, because And you can have it with anyone, right? Like with a friend or with, your family. But when you have it with your partner, it's something that's really special because then it's being able to share more of yourself or them sharing more of themselves with you. And then you're able to kind of be able to go forward and just learn more about each other. And, it's like always be learning, right? Like you don't have to start off with, thank you so much for the like. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And guys, feel free to pop in the live chat whenever if you have questions, if you have anything that you want to chime in and say, by all means, pop in the live chat. I am more than happy to talk with you. I would love that. But being able to share things with each other and being able to also have conversations too, like there's also a thing about um, you know how you want to be able to talk about, thank you so much for the like, I appreciate that, how you want to be able to thank you so much, how you want to talk about being able to share your relationship with other people, right? So there's some people that you know, just like to share things that just are more, a little bit extroverted, or that they have a community, or they have friends, or they have people that they care about. And so they like to share things about their lives, or they have a more public persona, or they have a more, um, or they have a job where they like to tell their story and share their story simply because they know that it's going to help somebody, or simply because they know that it's going to be beneficial for somebody, because maybe somebody needs to hear it, or maybe somebody's going through the same thing, whatever it may be, right? And then there's some people that are just more introverted, or some people that really don't like to share too much, and some people that are more shy, and some people that are more like, whoa, like let's slow this down. That's definitely a conversation you also want to have, regardless of it, regardless of if it's a long distance relationship, or if it's a relationship where you're physically together all the time, or sometimes, or however it works out for you, however much time you decide to spend on this relationship. So it's definitely something that you want to have a conversation about. Is this something that I want to take public? And when do I want to take this public? And how do I want to take this public? And like, how do I want to talk about this? And when should I talk about this with people? And a lot of times, like I said, when people already know the both of you guys, or if you have mutual friends in common, or if you've met in a way that's a little bit more organic than just swiping on your phone, then it's definitely a little bit easier, right? And you already have that base community, you already have that place, that safe space where you can kind of talk about it. When you don't have that, then I say, kind of wait, you know. And then sometimes you have someone that is very how do I say that? And I'm talking about myself here. Someone like me who just is a big, a big person on. It's hard for me to leave work at home, and I kind of take everything with me where I go. So I'm not constantly always like psychoanalyzing, or constantly always like listening for certain context clues and things like that in my relationships and all that stuff. But things will just kind of naturally come to me. Like I'll just kind of pick up on things and I don't mean to. And so some sorry, this because this is literally like this is kind of like happening in real time, because like some stuff happened last night, and I'm already like kind of talking about it, so it's really funny, and I'm so sorry. He's like, Jenna, you're the worst. But anyways, so no, I didn't get clearance either. I was just like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna do a live stream. I didn't even say that. I am the worst sometimes. No, but like it's fine. So but it's just sometimes when you pick up on certain things and you want to just be able to talk about certain things and share certain things, and remain cognizant, right, of how to talk about certain things and what boundaries to know and the boundaries to understand and the boundaries to really keep in mind, right? There's some things that we can say about people. There's some things we can say about our partners to other people. There's some people that we have relationships with, but we know it's not going to go anywhere. If we have relationships with some of our friends and some of our family, and we know, hey, we can make a joke or we can say something about our partners, and we're just going to be able to laugh about it and move on and probably just like forget about whatever we said. It's not going to be a big deal. But you don't really know, right? When it comes to people that are acquaintances or people that, you don't have in your trust circle or people that you don't have in your everyday life, you don't know how that's going to go. You don't know how far that reach can be. So you definitely want to be careful. And if you know that your partner doesn't like to be talked about, or if you know that like your partner doesn't really like to be joked about, right? Like there's nothing wrong with not having an extreme sense of humor and, being able to joke around a lot and being able to be silly and not having that dynamic. There's nothing wrong with that. There's some people that are just more serious types of people. It's something that I personally wouldn't be able to vibe with as well. But that's just me. But there's nothing wrong with that, right? There's just some people that are more serious. There's just some people that are a little bit more sensitive. There's just some people that are at a different place in their journey or that are just completely different people than somebody like me or somebody like my friends or somebody like the people that I associate with. And that doesn't mean that that's wrong. It just means that you're different and that's perfectly okay. 100% okay, right? It's okay to not want certain intimate details of your relationship being shared with other people. That's just a boundary. That's all it is. It's just a boundary. So communicate that boundary with your partner. And if you find that your partner is constantly violating that boundary, you need to have a conversation with them. Or worse, if they're violating that boundary and you don't know about it, then, and it's like a constant thing, then, you know, and actually, that's one thing I didn't think about. How would you find out? I feel like somebody would eventually tell you. hopefully hopefully you have mutual friends or hopefully you have some way of um having someone have the heart to tell you like, yo, we're hearing some crazy stuff, or yo, we're starting to kind of feel uncomfortable about the way you're being talked about, or whatever it may be. um but just being able again to initially have that trust and have a relationship that is based on principles that align with you and with your partner. If it's just in alignment with one person, I'm sorry, but it's not going to work out. It's not going to work out. It can't be a one-way street. It has to be two ways. So that's why when someone's like trying to come back and slide into your DMs or slide back into your texts or slide back into your life, and you're just at a different place and it didn't work out the first time, why would it work out now? Oh my gosh, I'm sweating. It is so humid here in Texas. Sorry. It's like a little bit of my ADD is coming out. That's a lot of sweat. Okay. Well, anyways, sorry. Um it's just one of those things where it's like you're in a different place, you're just not in that type of, situation anymore, or it wasn't good to start off with. That's why it ended. And it's not something that you really feel like you want to deal with, or every situation's different. And sometimes, honestly, it's just not that serious, or it wasn't really that serious to begin with. And for them too, it probably wasn't that serious either. If you have that feeling like it wasn't really a big serious thing, it was just kind of something that like, oh, you were lonely, or oh, you were bored. I think a lot of people are guilty of that sometimes, where you've been alone maybe, or you feel lonely, or you just want to have a conversation. We are all very social creatures. even people that are introverted, we're still social creatures, especially when you're having conversations with people online or when you're having conversations with people through text. Something about having that third party. And what is the third party? Our phones. The third party is, when you don't have that person right in front of you. The third party is always going to be your device. We kind of have the ability to have this thing in our head be like, oh, we can kind of say more things that we really wouldn't say if the person was right in front of us, probably, because we have that safety, we have that barrier. We kind of have a built in boundary, a built in wall, a built in fortress a little bit because we feel a little bit safer because, hey, it's just saying it to a phone. We're not saying it to the person right in front of us. And so sometimes that will elicit a little bit more bravery with saying certain things. Sometimes that'll elicit a little bit more like, oh, yeah, okay. I feel much more comfortable saying this because I don't have to say it right in front of you, or I don't have to, you know, uh, I just feel a little bit more comfortable saying this because it maybe feels a little bit less intimate or it feels a little bit less um, serious, or not serious, but it doesn't feel so heavy because you're doing it through your phone, or a phone call or whatever it may be. So it's really interesting how there's so many different like dynamics and psychologically how our brains work and how we think and how we um, will engage in communication with our partners, and not only just our partners but in relationships in general, how we'll engage with people and how different it may be depending upon the form of communication as well. So again, it's very easy to just not engage with people that are trying to come back into your life. Again, I don't know why, but again, a few people recently have told me this is happening. People are trying to kind of come back into my life that have been MIA for a while. I don't know what's going on. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if it's the season. I don't know if this is just something that's been going on. I don't know what's going on. But it's been from a few people. So, um, it's just one of those things where it's like, do what you want to do, but just know, again, your time and your energy are incredibly important. So whatever you're going to put those two very important and valuable resources into, have it be something that's going to benefit you, have it be something that's going to give you joy, have it be something that's going to fill your cup back up, and not be something that you're going to feel like, oh, you know, shit, this was a waste of time, this was a total and complete, um like something where you're not going to, an hour from that moment or 2 hours from that moment, be beating yourself up. That's what I don't want for you. I don't want you to be beating yourself up. I want that to be able to, be avoided as much as possible, right? Not regretting the decisions that we're making, not ruminating on the past, preventing that as much as we can, being proactive as much as we can. Being happy. Oh, thank you so much for the like. I really appreciate that. So sweet. Um, so just as long as, again, communication being a really big component, understanding the way that we're communicating, if there is any mishaps or any breakdowns in communication, a big thing I will say in all relationships, no matter what, and something that this really has nothing to do with like my partner or anything like that, but has more to do with another relationship, like a familial relationship. But seeing it now, it's avoiding the communication breakdown. So, not allowing yourself to get to that point where you shut down or allowing yourself to shut down. Because sometimes what we do is we have our boundaries, right? Because we've spent so much freaking time not having boundaries and being people pleasers and just allowing ourselves to give, and forgetting that we need to have our cups refilled as well. And we need to have relationships that are reciprocal, right? Reciprocal relationships, not one-sided relationships, not where you're the one that's always giving, and also not one where you're the one that's always taking, where it is reciprocal. And understanding that sometimes you, in communication, you want to always have a door open, especially if it's somebody that is positive in your life, if it's somebody that you care about, if it's somebody that means a lot to you, somebody that's important to you. Um, you might tend to, once you start to develop your boundaries, have this thing where you overcorrect. And you don't want to do that, right? You don't want to be overcorrecting for too long, but it is something that does tend to happen, especially when you've spent a very long period of time being a people pleaser and being somebody that is like the yes man or the yes woman or the, just the yes person, right? You definitely want to be wary of the overcorrection. You don't want to have that last forever. You don't want to be somebody that has become kind of like resentful of certain things, or that appears to be resentful, right? We want to be as open as we possibly can be. We want to be open to new experiences. We want to be open to communication with people, because communication is so incredibly important with everyone, right? Body language is something that I've talked about a lot, but being able to be open in our minds, being able to change our perception, which is another thing that I've talked about in my previous live streams and videos. Being able to maintain an open heart as much as possible. Being able to maintain an open heart, being able to come from a place of love with everyone. But again, that only comes when you're able to really come from a place of love, of loving yourself. That's really the only way. So that's always step one. So go back to step one first and then come back to the rest of this. Um, but what I did is I did a shutdown because I did that overcorrection, and I was like, no, like I have these boundaries and this is what I'm going to stick to. And I was very harsh in my communication with this family member. And it's definitely something that I now regret, and it's definitely something that I know that I need to apologize for. And the reason that I am sharing this is simply because, like, I'm not a perfect person, right? I'm not always going to be communicating effectively all the time. There's going to be moments where I'm going to not be the most effective communicator. There's going to be moments where I'm not always going to be at 100% with the communication aspect in my relationships with the people around me. But I definitely try to be as open and as warm and as inviting as I can be at all times, because I do always try to come from a place of love. Sometimes, though, what tends to happen with people is they get into this comfort, and that comfort is like being familiarity, right? And when you're familiar with someone, you kind of tend to think, oh, I can kind of get away a little bit more with things. I can kind of talk a certain type of way. You have your own little lingo, or you have your own, way of talking, and it may be a little bit harsher than you intend it to be, but that's just kind of because, like, this, family member and me, we grew up together. So, we have our own way of talking, but you also have to think about what you're using to communicate, the way you're communicating. Are you communicating in person? Are you communicating over the phone? Are you communicating through text? Right? Text sometimes, um, you know, online communication with text only is the most dangerous form of communication, especially if, we're using a lot of slang, or if there's not proper punctuation, or if, and everyone does this, right? Everyone just kind of has their own way of talking online, or everyone has their own way of talking through text, and it's just easier, right? And we just sometimes will assume, oh, they're going to know what I mean. Well, people aren't mind readers. So the communication aspect really needs to come from us. we really need to try to be as clear of communicators as we possibly can be, but we also need to, when it comes to being in a relationship with a partner, we also want to see that aspect or that, particular place of work, that piece of work, I mean, coming from them, right? We want them to also be attempting to communicate clearly as well, right? Now, I personally am not the kind of person that believes that relationships are a full time job. I don't think that they should really have to be seen that way. I think that relationships are here, at least when it comes to a partner and stuff like that, they are here for our enjoyment. So, yes, it does take practice. Relationships take practice. Relationships do require time and energy. Relationships do require that we put effort into them, but I don't think that it's like it shouldn't be like a job. It shouldn't feel like a job all the time. Sometimes there's going to be tense moments, sometimes there's going to be ups and downs, sometimes there's going to be miscommunications, sometimes there's going to be things that yes, you do need to work on yourself and that your partner needs to work on themselves. But that that's normal, that's typical, but a relationship shouldn't always feel like work. There's going to be situations that arise where it's going to be a little bit more difficult, where maybe you have something going on where you do need to kind of attempt to come more together, and maybe there's something happening where it feels like you're being torn apart a little bit. This often happens when it comes to having children and when it comes to parenting and things like that. And of course there's a lot of other examples I could use. That's just one that came to the top of my head real quick. Having different styles of parenting or having different styles of I'll just kind of stick with the parenting one. I think one example is good enough. Just to keep it clear and concise. So being able, again, just to have clear communication and to be able to feel comfortable being honest. And when you're honest and when you're able to be honest, but in a I would like to use the word gentle because I feel like that's probably the best way to put it. Sometimes we do have to come from a place of being gentle. Sometimes we do have to come from a place of, warmth and compassion, especially, right? We can't always come from a place of like, oh, this is my boundary. This is how it's going to be. This is what it is. We can't do that all the time. Sometimes if we're heated or if we're in a moment, like, yeah, I understand. But and setting boundaries, right? But we can't always just be demanding. We can't always just be um, setting expectations and demanding that people meet those expectations, because that's setting ourselves up for a lot of disappointment, right? We can't control other people's actions in any relationships, right? We just can't. The only actions you can control are your own. So, what you really want to do is, yes, obviously, have your standards, have your boundaries, have your know what you want, know yourself, know what you want, but definitely understand that like you cannot control anybody. It's just not something that you can do. You're not in control of other people's actions. You're not responsible for other people's actions. They're responsible for their actions, and you're responsible for your own actions. So if you are in a relationship, no matter what type of relationship it is, and the other person you perceive isn't doing their part or putting in their effort, have a conversation about it first. Coming from a place of warmth and compassion and even potentially forgiveness, right? Being able to come from a place of forgiveness, being able to come from a place of, well, if this was perceived the opposite, if my, friend, family member, partner, um, whomever, right? If they thought that about me, would I want them to have that forgiveness already ready for me? Of course you would. We all make mistakes. No one's perfect, you know? So being able to kind of come from there, but at the same time, also understanding that we do have our boundaries. We do want to set them. We do want to have our standards. We do want to keep them. But being able to be a little bit flexible, especially if somebody just makes a mistake and it's an unintentional thing, when it's not a manipulation tactic, when it's not a, um, and intentionally trying to hurt you. And learning and understanding the difference is really going to come from your perception and also from learning about people's behaviors and really coming from your trust level. You know, where are you at with that? How much do you trust yourself? How much do you trust your ability to judge other people as far as their character? And do you trust your own character? Like, how do you discern? How are you able to discern your own behaviors and your own character, right? Not judgmental as far as like being like, oh, well, and like criticizing, but being able to discern your own behaviors, your own character, and thus allowing you to being able to accurately discern other people's character and their behavior. And again, for me personally, I have always had, and I feel like most people do have a pretty strong feeling. They'll have that just that inside knowledge that I have the word on the tip of my tongue and it's like not coming to me. It's so annoying. Um, but they'll just know, right? Like they just have that internal feeling, and it'll be in your stomach, it'll be in your heart, it'll be in your chest, um, and it's just like that intuition. There we go. Okay, intuition. Thank you. I was like, I knew it's gonna come to me, but having that intuition, right? Just knowing a lot of us have it, but a lot of us kind of learn to, or for whatever reason, we'll teach ourselves to kind of shut it down, or we'll find ourselves in a situation where we aren't listening to it, or find ourselves in a situation where we teach ourselves to ignore it because we want to do something that maybe we don't know is bad for us, but that little training that we did becomes like almost this like corrupt, like this virus that corrupts us a little bit, and we shut down listening to that little voice, listening to that little feeling, listening to that, and then we don't understand how to listen to it. We kind of unlearn it. So once we're able to really be able to get in tune with that again, once we're able to really listen to that voice inside of us, listen to our intuition, and be able to, really get a handle on, okay, is this right for me? Is this something that I want to be in? Is this something that's going to work for me? Is this something that is going to be a positive thing, not only for me and not only for, my partner, but is this going to be something that's going to be positive for others as well? Now, the only reason that I say this, and I'm not saying that you have to go like, oh my gosh, like do a deep dive and be like, okay, is this going to be right for X, Y, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, all these people? No. What I'm saying is this going to be a positive impact on people around you? And the reason why I think it's something that is something to think about, and this will be probably my last thing that I touch on. The reason I think that it's something good to think about is because your energetic footprint, what you're going to be leaving, right? If you're like in a relationship, right? But you don't really want to address that y'all are always fighting, or y'all are always in an argument, or y'all are always, you know, um, making things awkward, or y'all are always, making other people uncomfortable. On a technicality, it could be said that y'all aren't making anybody uncomfortable, that the only people that have the power to feel uncomfortable are other people. But what I will say is that you also are playing a part when it's an incessant thing, when it's something that is not stopping, when it's a toxic relationship, or if you know you're in a toxic relationship, Or if you feel like you need help, there are resources out there to get yourself out of that situation. And I highly encourage you, if you have felt as though communication is off, if you have felt as though things aren't getting better, if you have felt as though, you know, whether you're in a long distance relationship, whether you're in a close distance relationship, whether you're not in a relationship and are just like, oh, this is okay, kind of good information to kind of know about, or you're just in a relationship that doesn't seem to be fitting right for you, knowing when to close the chapter, knowing when to just say goodbye, knowing when to just move on, that is incredibly important, right? And sometimes when that person closes the door for you, that is the best thing. Don't look back, move on, allow yourself to feel the hurt, allow yourself to feel the pain. But sometimes doors close because you are being led to something so much better and so much, just so much better for you and so much nicer for you and so much just like you can breathe again, right? You just never know. So doors may close, that's okay. Chapters may close, that's okay. Entire books may close, that's okay. Scrapbooks may close, that's okay. There's a reason. There's always a reason that things happen. And it's perfectly okay to feel upset. It's perfectly okay to allow yourself to grieve. It's perfectly okay to, with your friends and with people that are understanding, hey, Mar, it's perfectly okay to, allow all that to happen, allow all that to occur. Have your feelings, feel your emotions, have your grief, have your moments, but move on, right? And be willing and be open and be accepting of these new experiences that you are going to have. And remember that the, you know, feeling of that grief is not forever. It's not forever. Everything is temporary. The moments are temporary. Hey, Sager. How are you, hon? So, it's all, I'm doing very well. How are you doing, hon? It's all temporary, right? The moments that we're having are temporary. And that also means that these really enjoyable, really beautiful moments that you're having, they're temporary as well. So enjoy them. Enjoy the moments with your partner that are beautiful. Enjoy the moments that you have with your family and friends and your loved ones that are beautiful. I'm so glad to hear that. That's wonderful. I'm glad you're doing well or good, I should say. So, really enjoy them, really hang on to them, really try to be in the moment because it's incredibly important to experience and enjoy them fully present as much as you can be. So, that is my spiel on relationships, more specifically on a little bit more complex relationships. Thank you so much for joining me today for today's live stream. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and or join one of the membership tiers as it is popping off with content. In fact, a new video just went up today. And I will see you on the next video or live stream. Be well, stay wild as well. Bye.